At the camera talking to
You can look into the camera. You can look anywhere you want. You are the boss, Mr. Miller. Hey, my name is Eugene Driscoll. This is a video navel-gazing the Valley Indy podcast. And before we begin, that's Seymour First Selectman Kurt Miller making his monthly approximate,
give or take,
return to the podcast to update us on everything Seymour. Before we get to the interview, I'm sorry if this is awkward. I just want to make sure we actually are streaming. And that, so when I post this Monday, people can hear it. Let's check. There's us. Let's see if it's working. This will make her. We are.
Wow.
This is beautiful.
We look very
so
handsome
there
on
we
the
go.
big screen, the two of us.
Yeah, I guess that white background. I probably should have put something behind you. Did you support Richard Nixon? I mean, you were too young to vote for him back in the day. But there is a Richard Nixon poster back there.
Tricky Dicky.
Please do not interpret that as any support
From the Valley Indy.
Well, you're going to say
Eugene Driscoll
you are a Republican.
There is Richard Nixon.
There is that revisionist history now where Republicans are like, hey, he's all right. But anyway, Great Give is May 1st and May 2nd. Just a quick programming note. You can support the Valley Indy during that time and donate. It's the one time a year we ask you, dear reader, to support this cause, the cause of local journalism, the cause of having the Seymour First Selectmen appear in person to answer your questions. Not happening anywhere else. Right here. We're not doing it through email. You're not filtering even through a reporter and my thoughts and biases and the written word, of which there are many.
Biases of the written word. That's appropriate.
So let's start off with news. The first question, I believe, maybe it wasn't the first question, but it was from Aggie. Aggie Parlak?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She says, is he, meaning Seymour First Selectman Kurt Miller, going to run for re-election? And before you know what? Here, go ahead. As you answer that, I forgot to do the backup recording.
Turn up the backup recording?
Oh, I'm going to need this. But I'm going to say, all right, no, you go ahead. This is your time, Mr. Miller. Are you running for re-election as the first selectman in the town of Seymour?
You're going for the meat and potatoes right out of the gate, aren't you? I thought maybe we'd build up to something, a question like that. I figured you'd lead off with Tri-Town or one of your go-tos.
I got to pick up my kids. I got a dumpster being delivered today. Let's hit it. Let's hit the ground running.
There's a lot going on. So...
You're not going to give me an answer?
Oh, no, of course not. I'm just going with a dramatic pause just for fun. No, I do plan to run one more time for first selectman of the town of Seymour, but this will be my fifth and final term. So as where before, I would say I wasn't sure. I would consider not running again. I would use more than likely, probably not. This time I'm definitively saying this will be my fifth and final term. If I'm lucky enough to win.
Why put, I mean, you've won re-election how many times?
4.
And if I remember correctly, and apologies in advance if I'm getting this wrong, but you haven't had a serious challenger in a couple of elections, right? I remember Zani
Imatoski
was your last sort of a serious challenger.
Right.
So that was 2015. So why limit yourself if people obviously support you? Somebody's already said, I just heard it.
They just moved in.
So why limit yourself to a fifth 2-year term?
Listen, I'm a believer in term limits. I think that, people should not stay in these positions forever. I think having fresh ideas, a fresh perspective sometimes is good for any operation. That's not to knock anyone that's been in office for long periods of time. I mean, Mayor Loretti, has done a great job in Shelton for 26 years, I believe it is now that he's been there, 28 years.
Now thinking about taking over Bridgeport.
Yeah, now contemplating a coup there to take over Bridgeport. But, I think it's just time. I've definitely enjoyed my time in Seymour, but, I think it's time maybe for a new person to step up. And, what I found is if people think that I'm going to be here forever, that I'm going to keep rerunning, I think people wouldn't step up. People wouldn't consider. People wouldn't start thinking about it. So, if I say this early enough, hopefully this will give folks some time to maybe start to prepare for 2021 and, get themselves organized, put themselves out there, and find the best person, hopefully, to succeed me in 2021.
And then I'm just thinking of potential issues that may be thrown at you if you do have an opponent going forward. The one knock I hear on you, Mr. Miller, is that, well, now you're working in Ansonia, you've got 16 jobs, you've got too much going on and you cannot pay attention to the town of Seymour as much as you can. You're not supervising town hall. What is your reaction to that? And have you heard that? That's what I've heard, in the ether.
I've heard it definitely from detractors, people that will never be happy with what I do anyway. But my response to them is the results speak for themselves. Seymour is in the best financial condition, arguably, it's ever been in. We have repaved more roads in the last 5 years than the 20 years beforehand. We've essentially reshaped our government to make it more efficient, more effective. Our technology is stronger. We're the envy of towns all around us by the way that we work collectively with our Board of Education. So, if people think that I don't work, that I don't spend the time, that they just don't know. Ask people who get text messages and emails from me at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. We don't have set hours as mayors and first selectmen. We essentially work around the clock. So if I want to use some of what I'll call my free time, and that free time is that 80 or 85 hours a week to do some other things, I'm going to do that because I'm a person that really just can't sit still.
What about, I've heard, this was posted by an anonymous...
I give no...
$1,000 an hour you're making in the town of, or city of Ansonia for your consulting work.
The comment is so stupid that the person won't even put their name on it. That's my response to that. If you want to make a statement like that, you want to make a comment like that, be brave enough to at least put your name so we can have some true dialogue. It's not even remotely close to correct, so I'm not even going to dignify it with a response.
But you are working in the city of Ansonia as a finance consultant?
I'm just doing some consulting work for the city, helping them.
And it's $30,000 a year?
No,
I thought the Register reported that.
No, the fee is $30,000. That was decided on by myself and the mayor. And if you look at any type of standard consulting contract, it's 0.5%, which is standard for what something like that a person would charge. It's 0.5%, so it's 0.05%
of
the budget.
Of the budget, okay.
Right. So, it's not a number that we just arbitrarily pulled out of the air. If you talk to other consultants, people who do this, that's a going rate. And
how many hours? How many hours are you working per week for the city of Ansonia? Are you going into the office? Explain to us.
It depends on. It's different week by week. It depends on what needs to be done. Meetings and things like that. The vast majority of the stuff is at night on weekends. There have been a few times where I've been there during the afternoon. I don't hide it. I park my car right in front of the city hall, so I'm certainly not hiding.
But that's a pretty good gig, $30,000 for it's a part-time job. It's not even a part-time job.
Well, no, it's a $60 million budget operation. But it's not just doing the budget. Once the budget part is completed and that's handed off to the mayor, at that point then we're going to sit down and I'm going to go through a list of recommendations on policies and procedures, things that the municipality and the Board of Education can do to work together more closely. So there'll be a full detailed report that's going to come out of this as well. So it's not just doing the budget.
Okay, and then changing gears, the New Haven Register recently posted a story, April 1st, April Fool's Day.
April Fool's.
Residents, this is the lead, residents won't have to dig deeper into their pockets next fiscal year thanks to a proposed town budget for 2019-20 that, once again, holds the line on taxes.
Yes. So
sounds like a press release.
It does, doesn't it? It's quite nice.
Board of Finance recently approved a $57.3 million budget, and there's a hearing coming up. 7 p.m. April 4th at the Seymour Community Center.
It was last night.
It was last night. 20. I don't know what today's date is. So while the budget carries an overall spending increase of 2.1%, the existing tax rate of 36 mils will remain unchanged. So did you want to talk a second about how you manage to increase spending without increasing the mill rate? As this insane video of Alex Jones.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Yeah, it's very distracting.
Yeah, I can't even take my eyes off it.
Right. I watched some of this. Was it disposition? Is that what they call it? His 4-hour video he did. It's
deposition? Yeah.
Deposition. Yeah. Sorry. It's just it'll make your stomach turn. Anyway.
No, we've had growth in the grand list, and that growth in the grand list has been able to absorb the increased cost of day-to-day operations. The increase to the Board of Education was about 2.3%, 2.33, I think, to be exact. And the increase on the municipal side was about 1.8. million. Most of that is contractual obligations, salaries, benefits.
Everybody gets a little raise,
things like that. Yes,
essentially.
Yep. And then we work very hard to constantly change our budget to try to use our money as efficiently and effectively as we can. And as we've talked about this, every time I come on, we talk about the core financials of the town and the ebb and flow of taxes and trying to keep our budget level. That is our goal every year in Seymour, is to keep taxes level, but continuing to work our strategic plan. And because we have a good understanding of what we want to see happen over the next 3 to 5 years in Seymour, we're taking smaller steps now, so when we get to 3 or 5 years from now, we don't need to take these huge jumps.
And one of the things that Mr. Miller's talking about, which he said previously, is things like tax breaks, essentially, for basement systems, who did a massive expansion of their headquarters there. And Thule, also based in Seymour. And MPI, according to the register. What's MPI? I'm not familiar with that.
MPI, they're one of the manufacturers up on the hill. They continue to buy very large pieces of equipment and continue to expand their operation.
And the way it works is the town will say, okay, if you spend a certain amount of money to improve your property, to expand your property, we'll give you a tax break for a few years
on the new stuff. Yep. So what we've seen,
but now they're coming like
now they're starting
Basement
to come
Systems is now paying their full tax bill, and that's why the grand list is growing.
Well, Basement System, I believe, is on either their third or fourth project where they've used the tax incentive plan. So what we're seeing is the earlier ones are starting to roll off. The one that is mentioned in that article was a partnership between Thule and Basement Systems. Thule had a $1.5 million piece of equipment that they needed to get to improve their operations. They didn't have any room in their Seymour location, so they were looking around different spots. Larry Janeski, owner of Basement Systems, got wind of this, reached out, called the president of Thule and said, I have a lot that backs right up to yours. How about I build you a building and we'll put that piece of equipment right in there. Well, if the agreement went so well, everything worked out so well, Thule went out and actually bought two pieces, double the equipment. Basement Systems built double the size of the building. It's about 80,000 square feet. All in, I believe it's about a $13 million project that is just being completed, so I expect it to be up and running in the next week or two. So, while we don't have some of the flashy, I'll call it, amenity type economic development, stores or restaurants or things like that, what we have is just good, solid manufacturers. Our bigger taxpayers, our bigger employers are reinvesting in Seymour because they're very happy with the direction that we're going. Emery Winslow Scale is moving their entire operation to Seymour. So they have a large group in Terre Haute, am I saying it right? Indiana, something like that.
Iona.
Something like that. So, but they're moving all those folks up to Seymour, so it's going to be 9 new jobs. They're going to be reinvesting about
$1
million.
Where are they going to move?
No, they're already in Seymour's technology,
Okay.
Commerce and Technology Park. They're
That's
going to be moving
where
those
Basement
folks up.
Systems and everything. Okay, up that way.
So people say there's no economic development in Seymour. It's the fact that they don't see it. I would argue that there's been more economic development in Seymour than there has been in Ansonia and Derby.
Why do you always gotta? All right, why do you gotta?
But I'm just saying because Ansonia and Derby seem to get. And I'm not knocking Ansonia and Derby because I think both communities are doing a great job with economic development moving forward, but they see a new restaurant going in. They see these little things that are happening because they're kind of right in your face. Our industrial park is full, and the companies that are in our industrial park are constantly expanding, constantly reinvesting. That's how we're able to keep the mill rate level and still move forward with all these things. Look at other towns around. Sure, it's an election year, so everybody's coming in with a no increase budget. But look at what happens in the off years. Their budgets all rise. They have problems. They're flat funding their Board of Educations. There's fights with their boards of educations. There's a lot of things that are going on. We don't have any of these problems in Seymour because we all work together.
And Seymour, a few years back, was raising taxes slightly. And
every year there was a tax increase in Seymour, but we put a plan together.
Because you were trying to get the town's finances.
Right. Cutting taxes one year to then have to raise it for the next 2 or 3 years makes absolutely no sense. And when you have, and this is something that Mayor Loretti has preached for years, why do so many businesses want to come to Shelton? Because there's consistency in Shelton. As a business owner, you can honestly project out over the next several years what your taxes are going to be. So when you're developing your plan, you get a good understanding of what that would be. Seymour, before I took office, things were constantly going up and up and up and up. Now they know it's level, it's consistent. These folks, when they're doing these plans, they can take that into account. They can understand that I can get a tax break on a new investment. And then when I come off the tax break, I have a good idea where tax levels will be. They want to reinvest. So,
and also Seymour is similar to Shelton in that you do have some developable land, like that whole industrial park.
Correct.
Which is a big advantage over downtown Ansonia and parts of Derby, where we've got old factories that are much more expensive, require a lot more attention to make happen.
Correct.
I'm going to defend Derby because I live there.
Sure, no, absolutely.
Even though the mayor of Derby formally announced he's running for mayor. I
That's
guess
right.
I was left off. You know what? There's something to be said for getting left off a formal offense by government, and if your articles are not shared on local government Facebook pages. There's something to be said for that, people.
Well,
all right, moving on.
Hold on, I want to make a point. I want to make a point on that because you cover all the Derby stories. You're very good. Yet you're not called to do when that announcement happens in Seymour, where you don't get to as many stories. And we know you're a one-man band now. We take the time though to come to you to make announcements like this. That's how much Seymour believes in the Valley Indy, and we wish we saw you more in Seymour.
Wow, you really are running for re-election. All right, here's our second question from Steve William on our Facebook page. Do Kurt Miller and former Chicago Cub Kurt Miller get together for lunch when he's in town?
Well, no, but I mean, I didn't realize he was a Chicago Cub. I know there was a Kurt Miller, left-handed pitcher for the Pirates.
I said no.
Because I had his baseball card in college, and every now and then I would go out and say, "Well, yeah, I'm Kurt Miller. I pitch for the Pirates," and I'd have the card. Now that Kurt Miller, I believe, was 6'3", and I'm obviously not 6'3", nor am I left-handed. So
we're getting into strange territory.
Yeah.
Timothy Bristol, how does Kurt Miller think the Republican Party can bounce back from their loss in the? He must have been typing on the phone in the 2018 election. That's a
big question.
Big question. Can you give us like the John McLaughlin?
Wow.
Quick answer.
So I think at some point.
I'll tell you, if Democrats push tolls.
Well, we've seen the same thing over and over again from the Democratic Party at the state level. It's the same thing year after year after year. Yet the people keep voting them back in, and they do the exact same thing. And they vote them back in. So to be quite honest,
the Republicans keep losing.
I don't know. I don't know if it's a messaging issue. I'm going to be honest with you, and I'll give credit to the Democrats. I mean, they have a very effective ground game. They get out, they knock doors. It's that retail politics. They're I think a little bit better at it than the Republicans are right now. And let's be honest, this is a Democratic state, so it's going to be hard for us to break through. It's going to take something special. To your point, though, if you look at the vast majority of people in Connecticut are against tolls. If tolls are rammed down residents' throats on top of all of these other policies, that could be something that turns it, but it's got to be handled the right way. We as Republicans cannot just be the party of no. It can't be, no to tolls, no to this, no to that. We need to start pushing more of our ideas, getting those things out, putting more proposals out. I know that's hard because we're such a small minority at this point now up in Hartford. It's challenging, but we just have to keep slogging along and trying to get as much as we can done.
And then sticking with tolls, Matthew Laricia asks, what's your opinion on the controversial issues of tolls and cannabis, especially given what happened at the high school? Yesterday at Seymour High School, allegedly a 15-year-old brought some type of vaping device with liquid marijuana in it. Some kids, I guess, smoked it, got ill. Kudos to the school and the police department for letting the public know what happened. I'm often very critical of freedom of information and transparency. Everyone says transparency, but they never are when it's actually something that matters. But the school did a good job, I thought, getting the word out there.
Yeah, I believe the superintendent's first message, I believe, was out by 9:30 or 9:45. So it was within an hour or so of the whole event transpiring.
And I know you want to touch upon some media stuff, but let's first.
Oh yeah, we're gonna have some fun with that. But we'll do the question first.
Let's go to tolls first. You've sort of talked about it. I grew up in New York. There are tolls everywhere. I was surprised coming to Connecticut and there are no tolls and also no helmet law. It's like a unique Connecticut thing. Yeah. I never thought tolls were a big deal. But nobody asked me. Nobody cares what I said. Sorry.
Well, we did a poll on my Facebook page for town residents, and it was 92% said no, they do not support tolls. Now, we'll clear up some of the issues because I know there was a toll form that was done here. I know there was a little bit of back and forth.
It was great.
Yeah, don't support the Stefan and.
Actually, I reached out. I should note that I sent Stefan an email just this morning if he wanted to give any comment on the budget, and he said, "Let Kurt have his time."
Yeah,
and I'll see you next time.
We spoke, Stefan and I, because I didn't want him to think that we were blowing him off or anything like that. But
that was I should have.
Oh no, that's all right. So
right, yeah.
But the biggest issue that I have is the reason why we're making these decisions, and it seems a lot of them is based simply in the need for more revenue. And I honestly do not believe that the state of Connecticut has a revenue problem. The state of Connecticut has a spending problem. We keep spending and spending and spending, and we need to continually find ways for new revenue. I don't know if legalizing marijuana is the right or the wrong thing to do. I mean, I would want to see a lot of data from doctors and things like that talks about the effects that it has and the potential that it could lead to other things. If I saw good data from doctors that said it was an okay thing to do and it's not dangerous for people, I might be able to get behind it. But the big push that's coming from a lot of Democrats in the state of Connecticut is, look at the revenue that all these other states are making.
There's like a desperation.
Right. We should not be legislating with a gun to our head based on the need for more revenue. And that's where I have a huge problem. No one's really sat down, at least that I've heard, and made the compelling argument just for legalizing marijuana on its own, or just for legalizing sports betting on its own. Tolls, while they claim is going to be this global fix for all the special transportation fund, that money can only be used on the highways in which the tolls take place. So if it's 91 and 84 and 95 in the Merritt Parkway, that's where all that money will go. And you heard very clearly, Senator Austin said, we've never taken money out of the special transportation
going
fund.
with the talking points. I've seen that video.
But what did she say? We've intercepted it along the way. So who cares how good this constitutional lockbox is if the legislature is just going to, what they call revenue intercept and pick money off in between? What's the point? And again, the residents of the state of Connecticut pay enough taxes. They don't need to pay more.
Okay, so moving on. Richard Demko, Seymour Republican, asked, how is Seymour doing with overall economic development? I think we already answered that.
I would say extremely strong.
Okay. Aggie, again, with what happened yesterday, do you think asking the school, police department, EMS, et cetera, to do a parent workshop about how to talk to kids about drugs or the warning signs could be beneficial to our community?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think any time that people get together and talk in a constructive way like that, I think is a great thing. So that's something that I'll bring to the superintendent and our service chiefs to see if they'd be interested in putting that together.
She says, especially since marijuana dab pens have no smell. It's always something. It's always like these new ways to get high for everybody.
Well, listen, we were kids once. You can create a great mousetrap and kids are going to figure out how to get around the mousetrap.
It's one,
unfortunately, it's one of those things. And I think a lot of it, to Aggie's point, it starts at home. And if some professionals can come in and maybe provide some information to parents, maybe parents can now talk to their kids about the dangers of these things. And, maybe some of the parents aren't equipped to do that, don't know how to do it. And, if we can provide them, or if we can provide them some help, then it's not a bad thing.
It's personally annoying to me that, smoking was a thing for so long, that disgusting killer habit. Then it's sort of the tide turned. Society was sort of against smoking, and we saw teens smoking, and then Satan comes out with vaping.
Right.
That's my opinion. Let's ask, before we go on, a bunch of people asked about roads, but let's take a little tangent here. Hopefully this is still on. I should check that. But
we're doing all this talking to nobody but me and you.
Yeah, that would be bad. I see us right there.
Excuse me, you and
I. So apparently this is going. So you didn't like the media response in some way you mentioned before I went on?
I have a huge problem with
the response to the
media
school?
Yesterday. And I'll try to choose my words carefully because I'm extremely annoyed in the fact that reporters that have no idea about Seymour, have no idea who we are, what we're about, to be quite honest with you, I guess half of them have never been to Seymour before in their life, suddenly are showing up with cameras and talking about how bad Seymour is, how bad its school system is, because there was an unfortunate incident with 7 students. Now, where were these same reporters 2 years ago when we had the top 11 kids at Seymour High School went to either MIT or an Ivy League school? Where were they reporting about that? Where are they reporting about all the great events that go on at Seymour High School, Seymour Middle School, all the things that our kids do? Where are these same reporters when Mary Deming and Seymour Pink puts 3,500 people on our roads to do a road race to raise money for breast cancer awareness? These reporters are nowhere to be found, and it is embarrassing that they show up and they're like ravenous dogs. Well, I can't believe you don't want to come on the camera. No. I'll come on the camera.
Oh, talking to you?
Yeah.
And he's talking about TV.
Yeah, I'm not talking about Eugene. I'm not talking about the Register or the Post.
You guys. I'm including those in there. But let me just play devil's advocate for a moment. When you talk about, hey, we had 11 kids going to good schools, it's almost like asking, well, how come we don't see TV stories about all the people who don't die in a car accident on Route 8? Because that's literally impossible to do, and it's expected that a school district should be functioning and the normal things should be happening. So when something like when a kid brings allegedly a vape pen and kids get sick from it, that's a public occurrence, and you may not like it, but that's going to generate...
A kid sneaks something
news
like that into school, and 7 kids do the wrong thing. Without any knowledge of the teachers, the staff, anything, they snuck it, it happened. Why is that a reflection on the Seymour Public Schools? Had that been done someplace else, would that, if they went to the Connecticut Post Mall, would that be a reflection on the Connecticut Post Mall? No, it's just, I don't know, it annoys me the fact...
How do you think it, like, I don't know, what transpired, that what did they say, or the reporter tried to get you on, that made you think they were reflecting upon the school district? Did they say, like, don't you want to come on because...
Watch some of the media
that's my thing. I don't watch any of it.
Well, that's the thing. And just, they make Seymour... And then what they do is now they flash back to some things that have happened over the last year or two. And now they're suddenly bringing these things and jamming them all together. Like, suddenly Seymour is this bad place. They bring up the incident with Paul Lucky. They bring up the incident a year ago with the football team, and now suddenly you're trying to say that Seymour is this awful place.
Threat recently too.
When those are the only 3 times that we've seen any of those reporters ever in Seymour. We literally will call and beg them to do some of these stories, and their response is, "Oh, we don't have time. We don't have a reporter. That's not really news." But coming down, 7 kids do something inappropriate and wrong. That's news. But 11 kids do something that is absolutely exceptional, and that's not news. That's not important. I honestly, I have little to no use for the media, because they want sensational. They want the ridiculous stuff because they think that drives ratings. I mean, I wanted to throw a shoe at my TV this morning as I was watching Channel 8 News. The nonsense that they were talking about Seymour. And they don't pronounce people's names correctly. It's a hatchet job. And to be quite honest with you, TNH, NBC, FSB, Fox, they should all be embarrassed with themselves and the way that they handled that situation yesterday, because it's completely inappropriate, in my opinion.
Now, although I have seen them, they whenever a TV shows up to do some of those positive stories, I think they've showed up for like drunk driving simulations or stuff like that. I mean, the people in Seymour and everywhere, and all the politicians, where there's a camera there, they're all like become like SpongeBob behind you. Their eyes go wide. People love the TV until they don't. All right, I'm not going to.
That is few and far in between, and you might get one because we beg and beg and beg somebody to come.
Because the problem is, I think sometimes, and I feel that sometimes here, like Dr. Seuss Day. Mm-hmm. You could do one Dr. Seuss Day in Derby, then you got to do everybody and their brother has a Dr. Seuss Day, and suddenly you're just reporting on Dr. Seuss Day for 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, right. And it becomes a little unmanageable. But I didn't watch those. I don't want to.
Well, I'm a little passionate about it.
I mean, no, I get it. One thing that surprised me were, on the Seymour community page where I posted questions for you as well, some people were like, well, in my day, kids would OD in the bathroom and the media never covered that. Well, I would argue that even though Seymour is momentarily going through some bad PR in its image, which really goes away, it's in the ether within a second, it's good that the school I'd hate to see the school start to go back, and the police department go back to the 20 or 30 years ago where you would just keep this all hush-hush because
right.
you don't want anybody to know kids are ODing in your bathroom. But there is a double-edged sword, and I think the media does have a responsibility to be fair. I know it weighs on my soul if I do. I mean, I covered the Paul Lux story. Mm-hmm. We were the first to report it with the Republican American. I always try to follow. I try to follow it up with something. But there should be a balance.
You do stories in Seymour. The Register, the Post, they do stories in Seymour, both good and bad. Right. I don't have a problem with that.
TV's the helicopter coverage.
Right. When you're covering everything, both good and bad, then there's no issue with that. But when to your point, you show up just for the bad stuff. I mean, shame on you. There's a ton of good things that go on in Seymour that they could do stories on that are special, and they just choose not to.
Can the state? Can he get? You meaning you? This is from Adam Zoller.
Yeah.
Can you get the state to take the speed bump out of the right lane of Route 8 South in the right lane before exit 20? I love that it's so specific.
Yeah. I know
now you know.
I know of the speed bump that he refers to. State Representative Claire Steacher is aware of it, and she's working on that. If you notice, they've actually milled a section of Route 8, and they'll be starting, I believe, next week or the week after. I forget the exact schedule they gave, where they're going to start. They're going to start repaving that section and working on that little bit of area, but she is definitely on that.
Chris Del Sol, what are your feelings on the school regionalization bills being floated in Hartford? I remember you and Stefan Bohuniak, the member of the Board of Selectmen and the head of the Seymour Democrats, had talked about this, I think, possibly in your last podcast.
Yes.
Where it was kind of, well, anyway, what do you, you're opposed, obviously.
Oh, I am 100% opposed to forced regionalization. What they should be doing is incentivizing regionalization, giving towns and cities some extra incentive to try to look for opportunities to regionalize, not just with schools, but with everything. And the state could do this themselves. School after school, or town after town comes forward and says, we want to build a new school, we want to build a new school, because sure, the state gives them 65 cents on the dollar to build that school, give or take. So if the state is serious about regionalization, the response should be no. Go look and see if you can regionalize with another school, if there's anything like that. Then we'll consider giving you money for this new school. If you choose not to do that, well, guess what? The piggy bank is closed, and your town can figure out how to pay for that school itself. That's how the state can start regionalization. The state needs to put its money where its mouth is. But look who proposed that bill. It's Senator Looney, who comes up with these crazy ideas simply for the benefit of New Haven. If it works for New Haven, he could care less the impact it has on the rest of the state. That's all he's worried about. And that's the sad thing. Don't get me wrong. Are there natural fits? Do I think Ansonia and Derby should be coming together? I do. Should Seymour Oxford and Beacon Falls come back together? Probably should.
It's worth exploring.
Some of those things I think make sense. Forcing Seymour, Ansonia, Woodbridge, and Derby to be a school system because of the probate court district is the most insane thing when Woodbridge is already in a very well-run regional school district. Again, it's Hartford legislators that come up with these ridiculous ideas because in their minds they think sound good because all they do is create laws. They don't manage, and that's the problem. Instead of reaching out to the mayors and first selectmen who actually run these operations, reaching out to the superintendents and asking, they just decide we're going to create laws and you guys will figure out how to make them work.
Adam Zoller again. And, he's continuing, with how much was spent to make a pretty traffic circle in the woods, I think he must be referring to Oxford.
The Rotary,
that thing that should be legendary. I hope there's a new Seymour history book that comes out. One of those,
it's special.
That gets in it.
It's special.
Will Holbrook Road that leads up to it ever be renovated?
Yeah, we've talked about Holbrook Road multiple times.
That always comes up.
We'll go back through it again. Holbrook Road, and I know somebody made comments in there about the trees being very close.
That's the same one.
Yeah, Holbrook is just not a matter of just repaving. Holbrook needs drainage. Holbrook needs to be, as the engineers say, change the geometry of the road to make it safer. It's a $5 million project to fix that stretch of road. We receive federal transportation dollars to do that. The plan currently is in third-party, or just finishing third-party review. We actually have a meeting next week to go over the notes. It will then go to the state of Connecticut for final approval. We expect to be out to bid at some point in the summer, with work to begin at the end of summer. It'll be a 2-year project.
Okay.
to fix Holbrook Road. But again, it's a $5 million project.
All right, and then moving on. This is an
Well,
interesting one.
I'm just roads in general. I think, or I'll just keep going. And we'll kind of.
Because roads come up every time.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's the thing. I mean, again, we have a very
There's a
specific
plan.
road plan in Seymour that anyone can come down
you
to
should
my
put that
office.
on the front page of the.
It is on the website.
It is, okay.
You can go in and you can look at. Our engineer goes out once a year. He grades every single road in the town of Seymour and develops a plan of how we're going to fix the roads. We've done more roads, as I've said, in the last 5 years than the 20 years preceding. I realize there's a tremendous amount of road work that needs to be done, but there's only so much money that we have to spend on it. We're talking tens of millions of dollars to fix all the roads in Seymour. And because my predecessors didn't put such a priority on roads, we're playing catch up. So it's a fine line that we walk, that we're repairing roads that need to be repaired, but at the same time, we need to stay on top of the maintenance of the work that we've done over the last 8 years to make sure we're doing the crack sealing and the other year-to-year repairs
It's
to
like
make
owning
sure
a house. There's always
right. You got to stay on top of that stuff. So I'm going to be honest. It's going to take 10 to 15 years for us to catch up, and that's not because we're not trying, but that's how long it's actually going to take, based on the amount of dollars that we need and the plan that we have in place.
Do you have any advice? This is from Sarah Stroud. This is interesting. Do you have any advice for Shelton residents concerning the police investigation into high school staff members, considering Seymour High School faced a similar situation this year? A lot of Seymour residents at the time were very upset with a lack of information and details, but Seymour Police and the BOE had good reasons, this is editorializing, good reasons to get it quiet until the investigation was over. I don't know what she's talking about.
I think she's referring about the incident with the football team, I would assume.
Oh.
I don't know if it was he or she. I forgot who you said left that question. The biggest thing, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is just a problem with society, is social media. Because someone will hear something and they'll go and they will immediately jump on social media and they'll put it out there. And the next thing you know, 75 comments later, this one comment has now mushroomed into this big thing. And now suddenly that's gospel. And when government doesn't put information out, it leads to that. And, I used the example yesterday that you have to feed the beast. If you don't feed the beast runs wild. If you give the media, if you give residents, some information, you don't have to give them every single detail, but you have to let them know, okay, here's what's going on. Here's the steps we're taking. Here's a timeline we're looking at it. People will say, okay, I understand that. You can't talk about it because it has to do with a minor. We get that. It's an isolated event. Okay, we understand that. It's probably going to take 2 to 3 weeks to investigate this. And when it does, we're going to come to some solution. You put things out like that, people understand. When you say nothing, or you try to dodge questions or vaguely answer questions, people will just assume what they want to assume. And then social media now takes over and rumors become the story.
Yeah, and my issue with social media, not that anyone asked me, but whatever, it's my microphone. Social media is
as we're putting this out on social media.
I'm a total hypocrite here.
Yeah, the irony in that.
But there's that terrible Mel Gibson movie, What Women Want, I think it's called, where Mel Gibson can hear the thoughts of females, and now they remade it. It's an awful movie, and they remade it again. Let's remake this awful movie.
Oh, the girl from
She
Empire.
Hears Men.
Yeah.
That's what social media is a lot. It's just you're just getting a glimpse into people's thoughts all the time, and that can be very problematic. In terms of
But we have the responsibility, though. In fairness to these people, when there's that void, people's minds will do that.
Yeah,
so we're putting out information, at least if it's a little bit. It's not the full amount, but at least give people some understanding and some expectations. They stay very calm. And I can't think what the incident was 2 weeks ago. I don't think it was anything 3 weeks ago. Board of Education put a quick piece out that kind of said...
The threat. The school...
I don't remember what it was. Okay. But my wife is pretty tough on communications for me, for them, pretty much for everybody. But she picked up the phone call and she goes, hey, read the letter or the message that just came out from the superintendent. She goes, that was excellent because, he told us enough, and when she says us, she's talking about parents, to know that, okay, there was an issue, that the school system is aware of it, the school system is addressing it, and here's kind of how long it's going to take. She said, for me as a parent, that's all I needed to hear. And it made me feel much better. So I think the politicians, the leaders, we need to do a good job of making sure we're at least getting that initial information out so people have an understanding. It's their kids, so of course everyone wants to protect their kids.
You're definitely heightened, yeah. And I would just say for the general public, personnel files are public documents. If the school or the organization or the government institution is doing things right, a lot of times you can FOI a personnel file and they should give it to you. And if they're a good way to see if they're hiding anything, or is there a letter in there about this issue that you're talking about? If you know the name of the teacher or the person, you can put in an FOI request. Google Matt Kaufman personnel. A lot of governments don't do the right thing. I've had one recently, a complaint against a government that didn't give me something timely. I'm losing it. But that's a way you can do it, and everybody can do that because this is democracy. God bless America.
But it just, the caveat.
And also government. What I don't like, here's my 2 cents.
Now it's your time.
A government will, sometimes they'll be like, well, I hate these reports of these rumors that are going around. They'll tell you what didn't happen.
Right.
If you're going to do that, then you're obligated to tell the public what's happening.
Right.
Maybe not everything, I understand.
That's my point.
But don't just say personnel updates, because that's not... You can't have an executive session that just says personnel updates. You can't do that.
Right.
I have a story I'm coming on, like everybody's doing that, though. It's so depressing to hear. But anyway, that's that. What did you want to say?
No, but just with FOI, people need to understand that, I'm going to send an FOI request in. It has to be something that's actual information. It can't be, we don't have to create things.
Oh, it's not a truth serum.
It's got to be a document. It has to be a spreadsheet. It has to be an email. It has to be a file that's actually there. And we get a lot of FOI requests for things that are not FOIable. And then when you try to explain to people, well, that's not how this works. We don't have to recreate something. People will call in and say, I want a reporting of X, Y, and Z. And if that report doesn't exist, there's nothing to provide to that person. So, there's some confusion sometimes.
Yeah, the government, it's not a license to get the government to do work for you. Also, Tom Hennick at the Connecticut Freedom of Information Commission. Yeah, he's the expert on all that. Okay, let me go to the Seymour community page where I posted this as well. Let me just refresh and see if anybody there. That was all from the questions I just asked were all from the Valley Indy Facebook. Here is, I know it's cliche at this point, I love this. Any update on Tri-Town Plaza, Sandra Turner? Thank you, Sandra. I had the same question. They knocked down the buildings in the front.
Yep.
I've seen some things on social media saying that, now its owner just going to get a break on his taxes now. He's going to get a lower tax bill because there's less to tax, and that's all his whole thing. But it is just kind of sitting there now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why whenever anybody says, there's no economic development in Seymour, because you have that very prominent off Route 8 development right there that has great shops and is actually busy a lot. Dunkin' Donuts, Tire Shack in Ansonia.
Yep.
Anything you can report.
I have talked to Mr. Spector probably twice a week for the last, I would say, month. We are exploring some opportunity with Tri-Town Plaza. Since the building has come down, there has been a heightened interest in the property. So, again, vague. Yeah. Well, I mean, it
sounds like
it's private property.
From talking to you now for a couple of years, it is what it is.
Yeah, it's
something goes in, it goes in. If it doesn't,
the town is trying to provide as much support and assistance as it possibly can to Mr. Spector, and he's, like I said, he's reached out. We've had multiple conversations over the last month, at least 2 a week. He is eager and anxious to have that space be full. I mean, he spent a good amount of money knocking those buildings down. So you're not going to do something like that and put that type of investment in if you don't want to see something there.
Craig Rossetti, what's being done to get new businesses? He points out that Derby quickly replaced Walmart with a big Y. Derby didn't replace Walmart.
Where's Walmart and Big Y?
Oh, he's talking about on Route 34, the former Walmart that moved out. That's where that SpongeBob behind you is from.
Yeah.
There's a big Y going in there. The owner of the plaza.
But didn't Walmart go out like 3 or 4 years ago?
I don't remember.
I mean, granted, that's quick. That's quick.
I think maybe it was a year.
Plaza.
I don't remember the exact. Right. But yeah, the big Y is coming in, He says that it seems like other towns are passing us by with new businesses. But we did talk before about
again, I would argue
Connecticut basement systems.
The value of the deal between basement systems and Thule is multiple times greater than a Big Y. Big Y is amenity economic development, which I don't disagree is not a needed thing and not a good thing, because obviously the more amenities you have in your town, that's just better for your residents. But Big Ys are not necessarily what pays the bills. What pays the bills is Thule expanding, basement systems expanding.
You can rewind. That's how you're saying. That's how you're able to.
That's how you maintain your. And that's the question I would ask. If Seymour's economic development is not doing what it should be doing, then why are we able to keep our mill rate level, where a lot of these other communities can't? And they have all of this supposed economic development.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because somebody just said, I would love a Trader Joe's. And then Rick Buckholz said he wants a hotel, I think, near the train station, or, quote, yuppie restaurant, question mark, no close quote. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, we need more. You can't get enough of yuppie restaurants. All right, I wanted to ask you, this was from Christopher Bowen on Twitter, and I said you had previously addressed it, but this issue, instead of bringing in a one person as a town hire to do economic development, directing, you've brought in sort of this consulting companies, Connecticut Economic... CERC, okay. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that? You support it, for what I...
Yeah, we're the ones that brought that forward to EDC for them to vet and review to see if that was the way to go. I thought where we are with economic development, it made sense, I think, to bring in some professionals that have a good breadth and understanding of what's going on in the state as a whole. CERC obviously covers the entire state. CERC knows what's going on all over the state, where the value is. And we just thought it made sense to partner with CERC, at least for the next year, to get our economic development office back up and running. This person... though, I guess technically works for me, will report into the Economic Development Commission every month. We'll take direction charge from the Economic Development Commission, and on a day-to-day basis, we'll work hand in hand with our Development and Compliance Office. I think that's a great thing.
That sounds Orwellian.
Well, no, we took our old building inspector, Jim Baldwin. We combined him with all of our enforcement people into one cohesive department that works together. What we've seen is we've been able to move building permits and requests and things like that quicker. It kind of gave us a central hub for people who wanted to develop in Seymour. It's kind of a one-stop shop to that office, manned by full-time people that can address these things and get them moving. So
that's an interesting point, because I think in towns like Seymour and then Derby and Ansonia to some extent, there's almost like a part-time government, but there's a full-time need out there. And then all the towns, I think yours including, has tried to, when government says they want to be pro-business, but you have to spend money to hire people. You have to do this balancing act to make the government sort of more like run like town halls to run like a private business to some extent.
Yeah, we're spending probably about $100,000 more creating this department, but this department will basically pay for itself within 2 years. Just with the improvements.
So if you're trying to put in like a plumbing system in a new restaurant and the building inspector goes on vacation for a month, you're not stuck in this position where like, oh, well, you can't do anything for a month, go out of business. Okay, Christopher Bowen has a question on the Seymour CT Moms and Community page, which is a closed group, but I thank the administrator for allowing me to post there. We have a major issue with parking downtown. There is limited space to begin with, and on top of that, some of the parking there has been cordoned off. There are issues with handicap accessibility. This particularly affects Tea with Tracy. How can we best address this going forward? The lack of parking is having a notable impact on local business, particularly on First Saturday.
Oh, well, let's chunk that out. The parking that Chris mentions that disappeared is private property.
Where was that? I don't know what he's talking about.
That's the old Seymour, I say Seymour Trust, that's all I am, but a Bank of America parking lot, which is right on Main Street.
And had been empty, and now there's something. I missed that. That's why I apologize.
Right. Well, what happened was, it was private when Bank of America was in business. They had a security guard that would stand there to make sure that it was only for staff and for customers of the bank. When the bank closed down, the parking lot became kind of a free-for-all and everyone was parking there.
Oh,
the
I didn't know
building
that.
was purchased. The people who purchased the building own that property. They cordoned it off because they don't want the liability.
And they're using the building now.
Correct.
Gotcha.
So they have limited the parking just to specific people who use that building. We were able to use it, I guess, without permission for a while because Bank of America just didn't care. There has always been
God forbid you're late with your credit card payment, though. Then they're all over you.
Yeah, then they find you.
I've heard.
Parking downtown has been a problem. We made some changes to First Street when we redid all the roads. We made it one way, so we've added...
Isn't that a planning and zoning issue, though?
I believe it's 10 or 11. Well, it's space. The biggest issue, I'm going to be honest with you, we have a downtown parking attendant. A lot of the merchants don't want to park in the lots that are in the municipal lots that are around downtown. They want to park directly in front of their shops, and then they're going to complain that, well, there's no space for people to park. Well, here's an idea. Go park in the municipal lot and walk. Well, it's too far for me to walk.
So your municipal lots, that would be like across from...
the Fish Bypass, next to the Strand.
Okay.
Down by Trestle
Tavern was. Okay. Right. All right, so I parked there and walked up.
So you're talking a block, 2 blocks. If you're in the city... you'd pay a fortune to be able to have a parking space.
Mayor Loretti always says, not always, but I've heard him say that parking is a nice problem to have because it means people are actually there.
To his, I think he made an issue about handicap accessibility. We have redone all the sidewalks downtown. We've redone all the ramps. So I don't believe there is any ADA compliance issues with regards to sidewalks and things. Those they're older buildings. I think he mentioned T with Tracy. I don't even know, quite honestly, how you would make that building handicap accessible because that building is over 100 years old. To be able to put a handicap compliant ramp in, you would have to start so far up the street that it's just not possible.
And Seymour does. It's a quaint downtown.
Right.
It's sort of, if you put in a parking garage or something like that, I think that would take away from why people go there in the first place.
Correct.
Hey, did you see Artie Lang a couple of months back?
I did
at
not.
The Strand? I was there. I went to Jimmy's for the first time.
Did you?
I had never actually been in there.
Yeah, they do good food.
Yeah, it was
good.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, they do a nice job. So, but Chris is on economic development, and I know that's something that was discussed at their last meeting. I had some conversations with one of their members. We are constantly looking for ways to add more parking. That's kind of one of Brian Nusteriak, our town engineer's charge. But there's only so much land that we can do without starting to buy property downtown.
Somebody actually
convert just into parking.
Right. Pay Paradise put up a parking lot.
Yeah, there's a potential that we're exploring now. But again, to make a parking lot, you have to take something off.
You're going to bomb the Fish Bypass and pave over the Naugatuck right there.
Well, I wouldn't.
Oh, wait, was that true?
No, I'm
I was going to say.
Because it took long enough to get that project done.
Those are all our questions. I'll refresh this one time. I saw some. If I missed your question, I apologize, but blame Facebook. We got that. Holbrook comes up again. Brian Perkins. Why is Kurt making approximately $100 or $1,000 an hour? We had asked that earlier, but now there's a name to it.
Oh well,
he's a Ansonia guy.
I'll gladly answer.
Marine.
I am not making $1,000 an hour, so please stop spreading rumors. How's that for an answer?
Okay. I'll just put on asked. Okay, and then again, 2 words, Clinton Road. I don't mean to laugh because a lot of these come up every single time. I love that.
Listen,
you got to pave the roads.
We have
it's an election year. Definitely ask about your roads.
Yes.
Get a petition going, people.
We have a strategic plan to address the roads in the town of Seymour that will not change regardless of it being an election year or not. Every road is scored. Every road is ranked. And then a priority is put into place on every road.
Is this
Clinton Road is a road that connects Seymour and Ansonia.
Oh, this is the big one.
There is not a house on the Seymour side of Clinton Road. So for us, it is not high up on the priority list. I'm going to be honest. I'm not going to hide behind this. I've said this. I will say it again.
Yeah, you say this every time you're on. I love people ask about it every single time you're on this.
We have roads in Seymour that are more in need of repair, that are more highly utilized by Seymour residents, that would have a bigger impact on the residents of the town of Seymour. those are going to be ranked higher and are going to be addressed first. I'm sorry if the folks in Ansonia who drive that road every day are not happy about it. We do our best to try to...
I haven't driven on it. Well, what if it becomes dangerous? Isn't there a point
It's not... Listen, there's some... The roads are bad because the winter is just ending. And we haven't hit full stride yet with our potholes and our repair program. I mean, we did 500 potholes in the month of January. We bought a new machine that goes on the back of one of the public works trucks that makes hot asphalt. So we don't really use cold patch anymore. We do for some emergency things, but we put hot asphalt down now, and we're able to repair these potholes so they'll stay. There's a big push to, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, to get all of the potholes and fix all of the ruts. But now, so here's the thing. Now, a lot of the... See, and I'm not picking fights with Ansonia, so please don't take it this way. But a lot
you
of
better not.
A lot of the
checks
Ansonia,
are going to bounce.
I know a lot of the Ansonia folks call about Clinton, but I would make the conversation as a Seymour person. Well, what about the other side of Colony Road? We redid all of Colony Road, and right at the line, Colony Road's a mess and needs work to be done, and there's a ton of houses there. So that would be my counter to these people in Ansonia. That don't just throw stones when there's issues with your own roads, and just because
you're going to pick a fight with the people of Ansonia.
I'm not, but I mean it's just frustrating that they're going to call the news, they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Please call the news, call whoever you want, because I will stand behind.
You really touched the nerve.
Yeah, I will stand behind our strategic plan, and as I said, we've done more roads in the last 5 years than we did the 20 years before. I would challenge any other town out there to be as organized and proactive as we are when it comes to planning for things like this. This book is about this thick. The engineer literally goes to every single road, every single year, and scores it and grades it.
And I'll put that. I'll go find the list and put it a link or something like that.
It's out there. I mean, anyone can see it. It sits in my office. Many people have come. Many people have come in and looked at it. And again, it's very systematic what we do. And again, we can't fix 20 years of people not keeping up like they should have been. It's going to take a while to get caught up. Roads are not cheap. I'm just firing also.
No, I just love that local politics. It always comes down to, and I guess that's the beauty of our democracy. It comes down to roads. You got to make sure those roads are paved. Yeah. Forget the bond rating. Although that's important too.
Well, yeah. Well, listen,
you hear more about paved roads than anything. You can't pave the roads unless you.
Well, I was up in Hartford on Wednesday, meeting with our financial advisors. We had a good 4-hour meeting, and we talked about future direction of Seymour over the next 5 years, looking at interest rates, trying to get an understanding. With a presidential election year coming up, where do we see rates and things going? So. We have a list of projects and things that we want to accomplish over the next 5 years. When's the best time now to start getting that? And one of the things, is a new community center. Another thing is about another $5 million investment in roads. So it's trying to understand when the best time to move forward with that is. So, I had kind of all my...
And that's where you have to be careful not to bend to the political winds. That's like what Loretti, because you can't, if everybody, you just said new community center, if everyone clamors for that and the economics aren't right, you
correct.
Don't.
And you see, and that's one of the freeing things about saying that this will be my last term. I mean, I like to think I never really have. I don't really make decisions based on politically what's best. I think we've put a plan together. We've gotten the plan out to the residents, letting them know what we're trying to accomplish, and we've worked this plan.
It's a matter of continually stressing the point that
but
we're not ignoring it, but you might not like the answer for some of these roads.
Correct. So, I'm looking forward to the next 2 years if I'm fortunate enough to win re-election, knowing that it's my last 2 years. It's always like you want that one president in their second term to just pull the Band-Aid and fix Social Security. But none of them want to do it because Congress needs to constantly be re-elected. I think that saying that will be my last term, these are my last 2 years, we're going to put a very aggressive priority list together of things that maybe people wouldn't do because they were worried about getting reelected, but things that need to get done.
And what's a prime example of one of?
Well, a new community center. You might be looking at $10 to $12 million
Would you
for a
bond?
new
Would you
commu-
put that out to voters to bond for?
Well,
or?
it would depend on how we do it. If we needed to bond, then
And
yeah,
why
we
do
would
you
have
need
to
a
go
new
to
community
we would
center?
have to go to referendum. Our community center is in the old middle school, old high school. It's over 100 years old. To bring the building itself just up to snuff, we're going to have to put anywhere between $4 and $5 million in it. Doing that does not improve any programming space. So it doesn't give us a pool. It doesn't give us an extra basketball court. It doesn't give us more.
Is there a pool
meeting
there? I'm
space.
sorry.
There's not.
Okay.
We have to share. We have one pool in Seymour at the high school that we have to share with high school sports, with the Wildcat Swim Club, a bunch of different groups. So we don't have, a full array of what the recreation or department could offer when it comes to swim lessons and things like that. So what we're looking at is a new community center, and just hypothetically, we've talked about a building in the middle that would have programming space, that would have offices
On Pine Street?
No, in a different
Okay.
location.
Where?
Would house the senior center. Well, we haven't fully gotten to that part yet. We have a couple places that we're kicking around. So that would be kind of the center main building, and then off it would be essentially two Butler buildings. One would have a full-size turf field. The other Butler building would be an indoor track, basketball courts, volleyball court, weight room, and then behind it would be a swimming pool, and then behind it would be some type of larger handicap accessible playground.
$10 million project?
We think maybe $10 to $12 million in that ballpark. But now this would house all recreation activities in the town of Seymour, from
school would use it
little
as well?
kids. The school could potentially use it, but the
But it's
schools have their own
primarily-
facility.
Okay.
This would now allow the community service department, which has blown up over the last couple of years. The problem that they're facing, Mary McNellis, who runs community services, they just don't have space. They want to do more programs. They want to have more activities. If you look at the volume of people now coming to activities, now coming to the senior center, it's absolutely exploded. But they're hitting a wall because they grew too fast, which is, to your point, is a good problem to have, like with the parking. You don't have parking. That's
And the
'cause you got a
building
lot of
isn't
people.
designed for what it's being used as.
The building is obsolete and is only going to hold this department back. So if we made an investment like this, I think all programming, from young kids to young adults to I don't know, older people to our age, to seniors, whatever you want to call guys like us, we could provide
Tortured
this activity.
souls.
There's a
Okay.
clamoring for it. I mean,
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Biddy basketball, we have a couple hundred kids. They run a then teen basketball program. They run a 30 and under basketball league. They run a 30 and over. And you get people that just show up, but we don't have the gym space to do that. So there's a big push to get that going.
If you get reelected, it sounds like there's a committee already in place.
Everybody's going to, what happened?
Stream resumed.
Stream resumed.
All right, we might have sorry if there was a technical problem right there. It looks like we were recording the whole time. I had asked you what's going to happen if reelected.
So I think you heard that's probably the way to go, and we're very much looking forward to getting that. No, I'm only teasing. So
I was like, wait a second, I got a lot going on here. Don't do that to me. What do I miss?
The professional staff has been looking at it for a couple weeks now. Is it feasible? What are options where we can put it? What would the cost be to make sure the land is ready to be used? What would the cost be to build the building? And again, these are just informal things to get an idea, because if it makes sense, at that point, then we're going to bring it out to some of the different groups in town to see if they would be on board with it.
Obviously, you need.
Yep. So see if there's a
consensus among
coalition.
people
If people said that yes, we're interested in this, this is something to move forward. At that point, we would put more of a formal plan together, bring it to the selectmen, let the selectmen weigh on it, make some determinations, and then at that point we go to referendum.
Okay.
So the people of Seymour would vote.
I know Derby is doing their project. They have $3 million from the state as part of state bonding commission, but I know Republicans and other people are saying, "Oh, we got to no more of the state bonding stuff. We're maxing out our credit card." Would you go for state grants for a project like this? And would that make you hypocritical, Mr. I ran for state comptroller?
No, I mean, listen, I would see if there was any money in grants available, but we would run the project with the expectation that Seymour would foot the entire bill.
Okay.
But now we're also looking at public-private partnerships to see if there may be some...
Of course, this is cutting out again.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but I got you on this.
Okay, so we would look to see if there was some opportunity there where I would say, all right, Eugene, you are a large landowner. you're a businessman. Here's what we'd like to do. We'd like you to build us this community center, and we will sign a 25-year lease, and we will pay you X amount of dollars every year.
Oh, these are interesting.
For use of this. Now, the advantage you get there is when a municipality...
It's going in the industrial park.
When the municipality builds something, there's a lot of restrictions that we have to follow. If a private person were to build it, they can essentially do design build. They can design it and build it kind of on the fly, make it all work, and then we'd have an agreement in place that we're going to pay. I'm just making a number up. We're going to pay you $300,000 a year for the next 25 years to use the space to house everything there. Then there'll be the landlord, we'll be the tenant, and we'll have that agreement in place.
Does that exist anywhere? Are there any like towns that are doing that you're copying?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's something that we're looking into. I mean, listen, this is something that it's a big expense, and I think we have to kick all the tires, as the term goes, to see what makes sense and try to figure out what is the most cost-effective way for us to do this to be able to provide the service to the residents. I think ultimately, even if we footed the bill ourselves, based on the facility that we would build, that this would be something that would actually generate revenue that we can use to offset the debt service that we would need to take on. I'm not saying it would pay the whole thing, because that would be pie in the sky, but I think it would lessen the impact on taxes to do something like that.
Okay. And have you heard about any Democrats running against you? And then we'll wrap this up. What names have been floated out there? Bowen, the Bohuniak.
I'm not aware of...
There's a new member of the Board of Selectmen, Rob Van
Hagen.
Okay.
I'm not aware of anyone. And I'm not sure Stefan would call me anyway and tell me what their plans were. But, I mean, we have an open relationship, Stefan and I. I mean, we talk on a regular basis. I haven't heard any specific names. There's always the rumbling of some different people who may run. But listen, if they do run, I certainly look forward to the challenge of a campaign. I look forward to discussing the track record of Seymour over the last 8 years. I think we have done, my team and I have done an exceptional job turning Seymour around, making it a desirable place to live, making our government more efficient, more effective. We've held the line on taxes, but still been able to grow the town, to work our strategic plan. And I think we've turned Seymour into a very professional operation.
All right. With that, I don't have any other questions. I'm not seeing any on Facebook. If I missed your question, I apologize. Mr. Miller, I want to thank you for taking an hour.
Well, can I ask one?
Hopefully one thing? No.
If you can ask people, I mean, if you wouldn't mind weighing in on the community center
idea
as you're listening to this, I mean, drop a comment connected to this. And just if you like the idea, if you don't, why you think it might be good. Again, it's all theoretical right now, and we're just gathering opinions to see if it's something that makes sense.
All right. Yeah, that was a good one. I thought you were going to make me commit to a debate during that. I'm like, all right.
But I would hope there would be a debate.
If there's anybody, freelancers out there, experienced reporters, you want to make $100 on election night, please email me. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.